Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this week's Getting Started with MaaS360 webinar. So we're going to hopefully show you a lot of interesting things you can do with MaaS360 and how you actually get started managing your Android and iOS devices with MaaS360. We've got Val Hetrick from our customer engineering team who has probably worked with some or all of you at some point to show us today how you do this. So Val, take it away.
Great, thank you, Joe. Hello, everybody. So as Joe mentioned, today we are going to figure out how to get started with MaaS360 and learn how to get the most out of your evaluation that you signed up for. So now that you've signed up for your free 30-day evaluation, it's time to learn how to make the most of it. The session today is going to provide a quick overview of setting up the basics for your MaaS360 portal account and configuring it for the advanced mobile device management options. Today we will cover a couple things. First, we'll talk about how to configure the MaaS360 services, how to upload your Apple APNS that you got from Apple for iOS management. We'll talk about how to configure your device enrollment settings. I'll show you how to enroll both an iOS and an Android account on your device. We'll show you the policies and some of the options that you can use MaaS360 for management. We'll find devices in the portal using some of the predefined device groups and the Smart Search capability. And finally, we'll show some of the actions that are available. And finally, we'll wind up wiping a device at the end here. So before jumping into the session, I did want to just quickly review the MaaS360 mobile device management cloud-based infrastructure that we offer. We have a couple different pieces, as you can see here, and some of you may have signed up for just one or multiple parts of these. So we do have our ActiveSync Manager, which requires our Cloud Extender software, and that interfaces with your Exchange server or your Lotus Traveler server. The iOS enrollment requires the APNS from Apple, but provides enhanced policy options and additional actions like selective wipe on top of what you may have with Exchange, for example. Android requires a lightweight agent from the marketplace for enrollment and opens up the additional Android policy options. We then group everything together nicely under our single window that has access to various mobility intelligence, MDM dashboards, and reports. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop here. Just to set the stage, I have already signed up for an evaluation, and I have that here with MaaS360 on the home screen. So anybody who's on the phone that may have signed up for an evaluation, this is the first thing you'll see. So I'm going to follow the steps just to show how simple this would be. We've configured this for both iOS and Android at this point. The first thing we're going to do is click on Configure MaaS360 Services. And you'll see here that we have the ability to upload our Apple APNS certificate. If you don't have an APNS certificate, you can request one from Apple, and we do have documentation on how to do that we can make available. It does take a couple days for that to get processed, but it will give you access into the Apple development portal for some of their various options that they offer too. We already have the certificate, so I'm going to go ahead and browse to that particular certificate. And then we need to have a certificate password and a topic, and you will actually configure this when you move the certificate out of the Apple website. So we're just going to copy and paste some of this information in here. And then we're going to click Save. And this essentially is all that's required to enable mobile device management for iOS. You'll see the Android was already enabled since that's what we signed up for. And you do have a third option to enable the ActiveSync Manager. I'm not going to cover this directly today. If there are questions, we'll certainly take them. This does require an Exchange or Notes environment, like I mentioned, but we would be able to see which devices you already have synchronized to your environment and show some very detailed reporting for you. I'll go ahead and click Close, which is going to take us back to the checklist. We can now configure our device enrollment settings. There's presently two ways you can enroll a device. The end user would receive an email on their device, and we'll talk about iOS first. The iOS enrollment will provide them a link that they would open in Safari, and they have the ability to either use a unique passcode, which is unique per request, or we can integrate with your corporate Active Directory. And at that point, the end user would enter their corporate credentials for the enrollment process. In terms of the Android enrollment, the user would receive a link that would bring them to the App Market Store, and they would download the MaaS360 application, and then they would enroll, and you would become the device administrator for that particular device. You can also authenticate those folks against the corporate Active Directory as well. Apple actually allows you to distribute Exchange settings as well to a particular device in the policy. So if I wanted to distribute my MaaS360 mail settings to my phone here, we're just going to add our account description. We are going to add our email server that's enabled for ActiveSync, and we're going to secure the connection using SSL. That's an optional item that you can decide to use if you want to, and that would also distribute Exchange settings for your traveler devices. Again, I'll click Save, which will bring us back to the main window. And you can see now we're ready to do step 3, which is enroll the mobile device. So, just to set the stage on this, I am going to send live requests down to my iOS and my Android device, and I'm going to share them with you through VNC, so I do ask you to be patient as we are going to have a couple layers of presentation going here. But here you can see I can select either my iOS or Android device. I can enter my corporate username. I can enter my domain. I will enter my email address. Here we allow you to select the owner, whether it's corporate or employee-owned, so you can keep track on devices you're deploying versus ones you're allowing in. And we're going to use the default iOS policy, which we will show you some of the policy management here after the enrollment. You have the ability to email this to the user to send them an SMS, so it makes it very easy for them to click on the link to get where they need to go. And you'll also see that we support QR codes. So for those of you familiar with QR, you can use your device to take a picture of that code and it will redirect you to the URL. So for right now, I'm just going to do email to me. And you'll see that we'll get a request on the screen here. And now we're going to show you the iOS piece first. So here you should see my iPhone, and I pre-typed some of the information in. We will have to enter the rest manually here, so just bear with me one moment. And what you'll see here is it's going to redirect us to the mobile device management page. It does give the user some information in terms of the steps they have to take and telling them that, they're going to enroll for this corporate process. We're going to enter our one-time unique passcode, and this will essentially redirect this to the account that you signed up for so that you become the device administrator of this particular device. You see that we'll get the step 2, which is accept terms and agreements. We've read them and we're accepting them. And we're going to continue to install the MDM profile. Now this will reach out and install the particular profile to change some of the settings on your iPhone. A lot of these are Apple-generated screens that you're seeing here. So if you can see on the screen, FiberLink is the person who assigned this, and we're sending down a device enrollment challenge. Right now it's generating the key, which normally takes a few moments. After the key gets generated, we'll walk through a couple additional steps to download some additional options as well as the profiles that we set. So one of the options, for example, will contain an Exchange account since we opted to distribute our iOS settings via Exchange in the MaaS services area. So we'll let this run for a moment. And in the moment, I'll go ahead and just close this down in terms of the enrollment request. And when this is completed, we'll show you the Android part as well. All right, well, while the iPhone situates itself here, I'm just going to move my screen around a little bit, and I'm going to also send the enrollment request off to the Droid just to get that teed up for us. And you'll see I'm going to use very similar information. One thing to be aware of is Android doesn't allow email settings to be pushed down. There are third-party applications like Touchdown you can use, for example, to allow those particular people to get their mail. Okay, so we're going to leave this one on the screen. We're going to continue with the iPhone profile. And now we're just continuing. We're going to send down the SCEP enrollment request and also the mobile device management administrator. And you can also see, for troubleshooting purposes, we include your account number in the description. So if you do have any types of issues enrolling, when you call us, you can give us that account number, and we can help you get through some of the enrollment steps here. Okay, so it says the profile's installed. We're clicking done. The mobile device management is now good. So where I'll show you the two things that got set, under the general area, you'll see that there's two profiles installed. And the first one is the MaaS360 MDM profile, which is going to contain information about your enrollment request. And then you'll also see the policy has come down and contains a restriction. And in a moment here, we'll see the Exchange one pop up. And there it is. So you can see the Exchange account. If I go back to the home screen, at this point I should see an entry for my mail. I actually have our auto quarantine functionality on the back end, so I'm not going to be able to receive my mail at the moment. But if you look in your settings, for those of you familiar with the iOS, when you go under Mail, Contacts, and Calendars, you'll see the entry for MaaS360 DZ. You'll see my account information got sent down, and the user is not able to remove that, nor are they able to change any of the detail except for the password. So that's essentially your iOS enrollment steps. So for now, we're going to move on to the Droid. And for the Android, I'm actually going to use the QR code, so you don't have to watch me type again. So we're going to use the barcode scanner, which is one of the more popular Android barcode applications. And we're just going to point at the screen. And we'll look at the Android request here, and you can see that from there I can click on the MaaS360 services link, and that's going to take us right into the App Store area. Okay, so here's where we've brought into the App Store. We're going to go ahead and start the installation. So this will go out and download the MaaS360 app. And it's downloading presently. So here we can watch it download. It's pretty small, so it comes down pretty quick. And then we'll see it's here and it's installing. Once it's done installing, it's going to ask us to enroll. You can see, if you were watching closely, that the URL and the passcode are actually different for this particular device. So here our notification says that MaaS360 is installed successfully. We're going to click on that application. We do have a second layer of authentication for the Android, which is a corporate identifier. So we're going to go ahead and put in our corporate identifier and our email address. And we're going to click the Start button. This will bring us into the next screen where we have to enter our passcode. And we'll click Continue. Again, you have to accept the terms to opt in. You have to accept MaaS360 as your device administrator. And then as your administrator, it gives you the options of what it can actually control on your device. Now, due to, the multiple Android manufacturers and providers out there, some have limited capabilities in terms of what they support. We're going to go ahead and hit Activate. And at this point, we are enrolled. Now, this particular device does have the ability to take the user to configure email. So if they wanted to, they could add an email account. This happens mostly on your native Android phones that have the native email clients, as well as the Motorola devices in terms of the phone. Some of the third-party manufacturers like Samsung don't always prompt you for these things. Okay, so I'm going to go back to MaaS360 here and back to the home screen. And we should see our two devices are being managed. So just in that short period of time, each device has come back into the system. And here we have our watch list, which is a quick little bits of information that give you details about your environment. So here we have two devices that have registered in the last 7 days. One of them does not have a passcode enabled, so that may be, a problem that you want to push down a password policy. And then we have some other bits of information around encryption types and data sharing software. You can see we are done step 1 through 3. We're going to click step 4 just so I can show you some of the policy options. So first we'll look at the default iOS policy. And this will load into our new PSS. Some of you who may have signed up for evaluations a while back may still have our old model. We can certainly turn on the new model if you'd like. So here I'm going to click the Edit button. And if I wanted to set a device passcode, for example, once our screen refreshes here, we'll click Configure Passcode Policy. I want to require a passcode on the device. And I'm going to allow a simple value because that matches what I've done for my BlackBerry devices. You could do additional things here, but I'm not going to set anything else. Just to look through some of the other Apple configuration options, which are very similar to the iPhone config utility if you're familiar with that. Here are the restrictions that we have presently. So if I wanted to prevent the use of the camera, I could uncheck that. You'll see it also takes FaceTime away, because FaceTime relies pretty heavily on the camera. If I wanted to set Wi-Fi settings to push down, I could set up my enterprise credentials here, and just showing you a couple of the things that our customers normally will set up. We also have VPN options, so if you're using Juniper or Pulse or any Cisco connections, IPsec is built right onto the iPhone, so if you're a Cisco shop, they make it quite simple. And then you'll see here our Exchange ActiveSync settings that we set earlier in the step 2 of the device enrollment settings. So I'm pretty happy with those options. I'm going to click Save and Publish. It's going to prompt me for my password. You can put an audit history in if you want. And we do track all of this so you can see it later. I know what I just did, so I'm not going to look at the differences. And we're going to hit Continue. And that's going to go ahead and save that policy, and it's going to publish it out to the devices that are enrolled and assigned to this policy. So right now it would be the particular phone that I have. And it looks like I have misconfigured something. So we'll go see what it is. Oh, I didn't configure my wireless profile, so I do have to go shut that back off. So that's actually a neat feature that we have as well, where you can see what problems you may have encountered during your policy configuration. There are validation rules to make sure everything makes sense. So we'll go ahead and just put that back off. We will resave and publish it. We'll re-put in our information. And we'll click Continue again here. And now this will go out and all the errors should be fixed, and we should get a successful policy publish. Okay, great. So it is validating it now. And apparently I still have something not set properly here, so let's go take one more look. And bear with me one moment. And we'll just get rid of it. There we go. Sorry about that. And we'll try one more time. All right, so we'll go through the process once again, and then I'll be able to hopefully show you the VNC session of the iPhone with some of the changes that we've done here. And while that happens, I will show you some of the additional Android policies that you can configure too. So I'm going to click back to results, and here we have our Android policies. And the Android policies let you do device passcodes. You can do particular restrictions around not allowing users to disable background data synchronization. We allow you to restrict applications. So if you don't want Angry Birds installed on your Android, you can set that information here and prevent the user from installing it. Or if they have it installed, it will prompt them to remove it. You can set your wireless information, and we also have some device management info in terms of enforcement action. So say, for example, you set a passcode and the user chooses to ignore it for 5 minutes. We could then take an action like wiping the phone. So it does give you a little bit more control over your users who are resistant to, try to allow you to manage their devices that they may be bringing into your organization. All right, I'm going to go back to the home screen and back to my devices, and we see that our checklist is all good now. What I wanted to show you next were some of the options that you have in terms of the policy or the action management. So we'll look at the iPhone first. Within the iPhone, you can see we have a summary drop-down with information about the hardware, about network, about software installed. There's a change history and an action history. So if somebody did, for example, go in and try to wipe this device, you'd be able to see who did that. My iPhone is hacked, so there's no software installed to show you right now, so we'll look at the hardware inventory instead. So here you can see Apple's the manufacturer, it's on iOS 4. You can see the amount of, free storage, when the activation date was, the exact operating system. If I wanted to set custom fields, I can click Edit. And maybe I have asset numbers, and I can say who the device is owned by, and then maybe, check warranty. So one of the other pieces of flexibility you're provided here is if you have, finance or billing folks that you want access in, you can give them information into here and restrict it down to just showing them what they need to see, instead of pulling reports, off of your Exchange server or not knowing kind of where everything is. In terms of the actions, there's a refresh. You can remotely lock the device. That's kind of fun. Reset device passcode would clear the passcode in case, your user may have forgotten what their passcode was. There's still the full wipe capability. You can use change iOS policy if you wanted to make a new policy, for example, and move a user into it. And then you can do remove iOS control, which is what Apple considers the selective wipe. So this will just take the corporate information that you've pushed to the phone during the enrollment process back off the phone. So if we go back to the results here, we'll take a look at the Android, which is here. And you'll see a lot of the same information available in terms of the summary drop-down. Let's see if the software shows up from here. So here you can see MaaS360.com is installed. And this is the application ID I was mentioning earlier that you can use to block a particular device. In terms of your actions for Android, they are a little bit different. We do have a locate device. We can go ahead and give that a shot here. And that will actually go out and find my device and tell you where I'm giving this presentation from. So that'll just take a moment to pop up. I'll just continue to talk through some of the actions. There is also a reset device passcode that Android does. It's a little bit different than Apple. They actually allow you to set a new password for that user. So if the user calls in, you can go into MaaS, change the password for the user, and then get them on their way. They also have the selective wipe versus the full wipe, which works in a very similar fashion. So right now we're going out and contacting the device here. And we should get a result back in a few moments, provided my GPS is working. So again, this normally takes a couple seconds here, and apparently my device has gotten off of the wireless connection and has no SIM, and we're not able to show that. But normally a window would pop up and you'd see the location of the device. So that's mostly what I wanted to go over from this side. At this point, we can open it up for any specific questions that you may have, or if there's additional things that you may want to see that we haven't covered. So if you do have a question, just run it over the chat, and Joe will yell it out here, and then we'll be able to answer it for you.
Val, we did get a couple in here while you were presenting.
Okay.
So start with those, and then folks, if you've got questions based on what you're doing with the service right now, or based on what you saw Val do, please send them over, and we'll try to cover what we can right now. So Val, first question is it possible to use both Active Directory credentials and passcode during user enrollment?
That's a great question. So the answer is yes, soon. We do have a feature planned for an upcoming release that will allow that to happen, which will be available on or before June 1st.
Thanks. Next one is, how would I know if a policy change got applied? And can it be done for an individual, or is there a global list?
So our policies are actually based on a device basis, and there are actually two ways that you can look at to figure out which policy a user has. The first one I'll show you is in this particular setting itself. So we'll go into the iPhone, for example. And over here, you can see the policy version they have is 3 of the default iOS MDM policy. And the second way you can check is by going into the settings on the iPhone itself and going into General. And then you can check the profile. And right there, you'll see that the iOS policy is 3 because we changed the camera. And if you look back on the home page here, you'll see that the camera is actually gone, and I did get prompted for my passcode, which I ignored.
Thanks, Val. Next question I got is, how can I view just the personal devices, and can they be changed as a group?
Sure, so that is absolutely possible. We do have device groups that you can look at that will show you personal devices. And another great feature we have in terms of that is you can even apply policy at a group level. So here are our device groups. And here, for example, are employee-owned phones, which would be your personal devices. And here you'll get a list, which right now is just one. And if we go back a screen, if I created a secondary group, that's where you can do the bulk policy changes from. But there'd be an icon on the right-hand side here that you could click that says, apply iOS policy, and then you could walk through that workflow.
Great. Thanks, Val. Next question I've got is, how would I know if a device has removed the iOS profile, and can this be prevented from happening?
Sure. So the watch list that we're looking at right now will give you a simple alert as to which devices haven't reported in over the last 7 days. So these would be the devices that have been removed in our management link. In terms of stopping it, Apple doesn't technically allow that to happen. neither does Android. So what we suggest is coming up with a best practice to contact your users and tell them to reinstall or their email will be blocked. If you wanted to take it a further step, you could threaten the wipe as well. In an upcoming release around May timeframe, MaaS360 will also have an automated method to message these users and take an automated action like block or wipe, and that would be after a defined period. Android does offer some of that now, but we are looking to enhance it for all of the devices.
Super. Great, Val. And we did get one more in via chat here, not directly a product question, but the question is, are there any future features being developed? And I think the answer is, of course. It's what we do for a living, so we're always going to be developing new features. And what I would recommend, the best way to learn about new features is we run a What's New at MaaS360 webinar, and as a matter of fact, the next one is next Wednesday, April 13th. And if you're interested, please reach out to Val or I, and we'll make sure you get an invite to that webinar. And that's typically where we would talk about what's new, including things that you would be seeing soon in the products that you've bought from FiberLink. That's probably the best way to get that information.
Great. So at this point, unless there's additional questions, I'm going to hop back to my PowerPoint for our last slide here. And the last slide is really just if you have any questions or follow-up. My information is up top in terms of my email and my full name. You can also visit our Master Center, which has a lot of good information about our past webinars that you can watch. We have 3 of them kind of named up there. And there's also a lot of how-to content. One of our more popular links is our mobile device management best practices. You can also look at some research that we've done. The most recent add that we've had to that site is a new free tool, which is a MaaS360 ActiveSync reporting tool for your Exchange 2007 or 2010 server. And that would allow you to, pull out the devices from your Exchange server in kind of a simple tool format that you can export and analyze.
So, we're obviously we're thankful for your interest today to attending the webinar. We'd encourage you to go to the Master Center if you're looking for more information. We've recorded this webinar, and we'll be posting this in the next day or two. And you should be getting an email from us once we've got it published, and you can come back and watch it whenever you want. So thanks again for everyone who joined today, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Thank you.